There you go. Oh, wait. Go away. You need to... Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Well Anyways podcast. I'm your host, Nick Bakar, and today we are going to be joined by a very special guest. We are going to be joined by cultural connoisseur, esteemed party planner, and author of think pieces such as Discourse and Diatribes, How We Reimagined the Book Club, Notes to Self, Party Hosting Rules, and Flakers and Freeloaders, How to Not Be One. Please give a warm welcome to Victoria Bakar-Varela. Guys, thank you for the audience, the live audience we have here. Hi, Victoria. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here. So I would just love to start by, please tell our audience a little bit more about yourself,
Of course, definitely. But I would like to start this Easter Sunday by reading a quote that's very near and dear to my heart, and I think will set us on the right track to this discussion on,
please.
Whatever we end up talking about. The less you eat, drink, buy books, go to the theater or to balls or to the pub, and the less you think, love, theorize, sing, paint, fence, etc., the more you will be able to save, and the greater will become your treasure, which neither moth nor rust will corrupt, your capital. The less you are, the less you express your life, the more you have, the greater is your alienated life, and the greater is the saving of your alienated being. That is, of course, Karl Marx.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for sharing. And why is that quote important to you?
In Karl Marx's writings, he's being very satirical about how, why should you go out? Why should you party? Why should you do all these things when you can just save money and spend it, which is exactly what the insidious forces that be want you to do. And how, especially then as it is now, partying and being in community with each other is just a form of resistance, and also will help cure this famous American loneliness epidemic that we're always hearing so much about. So I'm hoping we can talk about that, because that's really been my leading ethos and prerogative for myself these past 5 years.
Yeah, and this isn't your first time kind of, as you mentioned, this is your leading ethos. Have you written any other kind of pieces on this? I kind of mentioned in your intro that there was a party hosting rules and stuff, and we'll get a little bit more into the nitty gritty, but what kind of history do you have in sharing your thoughts on this kind of topic?
Yeah, I love to complain and share my opinions with my friends, and so just really being able to write either on Substack or in group texts, and just put pen to paper for all of my thoughts and theories is just really important. This past weekend, Charlie XCX performed should have been headliner to do a second weekend at Coachella. And
just living that life, babes.
And just in that, we're seeing sort of the end of the notorious Brat Summer. And I think Brat Summer, which started, of course, summer 2024 and is sort of wrapping up in 2025, really just illustrated the need that people have for partying, and for too long introverts have had cultural influence and power. And so I wrote a little bit about that on my Substack, Listen Up Cowards. Because
link down in the description.
Because if nothing else, you should be brave in sharing your opinions, even if they are wrong.
Beautiful insight. And so kind of to tie it all in, last episode, I went on kind of my reading era journey. And
I don't think we're tying anything in. Really?
I'm just leaping from...
We'll fix it in post.
Leaps and bounds.
It's been a smorgasbord of topics in the first 2 minutes.
I see you have 2 books in front of you, Victoria.
I do.
Wow. Who would have put those there? And I just, I want to tie it into last episode, all my fans at home watching. Last episode, we talked about kind of my... My phone just fell straight into the mud. We talked about last episode my reading era, learning to read, the joy that is reading and my recent discovery of that. And, I would like to say Victoria has inspired me to kind of take that on because she's been a nerd for a long time and has been reading, forever. And you know what? Actually, funny story. We were going through family pictures the other day, and the gag is that Nicholas doesn't read, Nicholas doesn't know how to read, whatever. And there are several pictures from childhood where I'm reading. So to that, I say my parents just compared me to Victoria here in terms of, well, Victoria read 12 books this month and you read one. He's not reading. So I just wanted to confront you on that. I'm kidding.
No,
Anyway, so I'm not done. And so, I was reading a lot of YA books, but I've now, have started to read this book that's a little harder on the noggin, okay? It's a bit more to digest, and that is How Do the Dead Dream by Lydia Millet. Millet? Viva Argentina! No hay plata! And it's a really, it's a stream of conscious, which is new to me, but it's not new to you. Please kind of share what you're currently reading and what kind of books you enjoy.
Thank you for that call out. I, like you, was once illiterate.
Like all of you peons out there.
I read a lot. I was a voracious reader as a child, and then with the toll of academia, I read less, like many of us. And so I started to get back into it because I wanted to connect further with the broader human experience. Also, I was tired of looking at my phone on my commute. So I have a very, innocent baby goal of reading 25 books this year.
Crazy.
Which is not a lot.
It is a lot. Don't listen to her, guys.
But I just wanted to read 25 books. And so far I've read
25. Is that why?
Yes.
Wow. Her mind knows no bounds.
And I've read 8 so far this year. And something that I really love is stream of consciousness fiction, which I guess I could best describe as no plot, no character, just vibes. You have a character that is recalling things, going through things, connecting with nature, and it's kind of a, postmodern diatribe, if you will.
Call back.
Learning new words.
Before this podcast, I did have to walk up to Victoria and I was like, so I'm writing your intro. How do you say this word, diatribe? What is a diatribe?
A diatribe is like discourse, and it's a just long conversation and rehashing things.
So it doesn't have to do with a tribe? That's
No.
just coincidence?
No.
Okay. Sometimes the etymology, can do that.
Yeah.
But, okay. Okay. Carry on.
Anyway, so stream of consciousness reading, I'm really into that because I've realized that I don't really care for what exactly the topics are. I care for how a book is written, and if it's written with, I don't know, cool imagery or vivid inner monologues, I'm like, oh, cool. So I've been reading my girl for 2024 and 2025 has been Brazilian author Clarice Lispector. And so I'm on my Latin American stream of consciousness? Latin American stream of consciousness.
I'll cut that out. Don't worry. I'm leaving it in.
But yeah, I'm currently reading Speedboat by Renata Adler, which I am barely in. I'm only 13% in. But this will be my 9th book, and it was recommended to me on Substack. It's not like it was recommended to me on X, the everything app. But it was recommended to me, and from what I can tell, it's just composed of little vignettes. It's a little bit stream of consciousness, but I think there might be a plot being introduced soon. So
soon to be released.
We'll see.
Speaking of sharing books with people, one of the many joys I find in reading books in book is sharing it. And that's why I spent all of last podcast giving my thoughts and opinions on the Hunger Games series, and to, not that I feel like that I'm punching above my weight here in terms of literacy. I am. one of the great joys with, consuming any type of media and any type of art is sharing it. Now, what do you do to do that? Book club.
How I share.
Article club.
I was like, where is this how I share things?
I'm really good at tying things together.
Well, I love art in community, sharing artifacts and media in community. There are two main ways that I've done this really in my personal life. Well, really 2.5 if we're counting posting the books that I read a month on my Instagram stories to show that not only do I read, but I have a really good taste.
Which I think that counts.
Yeah. The first is instead of a traditional book club, which it might be a bit too hard to read one book a month when you are brain-rotted working young professionals. So my friends and I started Article Club, aka Discourse and Diatribes, where we
link down in the description.
We gather once a month and share articles on any subject or theme that is of interest to us. For example, I don't know, STEM, film critics, just whatever the theme of the month is. We all gather once a month to have some snacks, drink some wine, and just talk about the articles and share our opinions in a safe space, fun space.
Do you all read the same article? Like, do you share them ahead of time?
We share them ahead of time in a group chat that has many memes and then a few interesting articles from The New Yorker or Current Affairs, but never The Atlantic.
Never The Atlantic. You heard it here. Breaking! We are taking a hard stance against The Atlantic here at Well Anyways Media Core Group. Love that for you.
Oh, and the second... So the first way that I've been sharing some media is just Article Club, and the group chat has taken a life on its own, and it's also a place where we're sharing breaking news, our opinions on various cultural zeitgeist moments, and, brain rot discourse that is taking the internet by storm.
Range.
And then the second way, not for reading, but more for film and media consumption, is my bi-monthly, every other month screening soiree parties where we just come together to watch a few movies that are themed, and there's some appropriately themed snacks and drinks, and it's usually like, I'm trying to raise the bar on the types of movies that people are watching together, especially because it's more fun to talk about the movie after you've seen it in a group. Like, we recently watched Umbrellas of Charsborg, which is a French musical that it's really wild and very French. It's like La La Land, but in the 1960s. And
so it's like La La Land, but with cigarettes and cocaine. I've never seen La La Land. I don't know what.
Not quite.
That's what I imagine French people to be like.
Well, this was...
Sorry to all my French viewers.
But yeah, screening soirees have been fun to, the Americans need bonding. The people want to hang out, and you cannot just be sitting in a house drinking a high noon all the time. There has to be a element of, media literacy involved, especially because on the whole, people's regular literacy is abysmal. Media literacy, almost worse. Critical thinking skills, down the toilet. Dark times for the populace at large.
And some might say dark times cause for dark measures. Now tell me about your party hosting strategies. But firstly, before we get into that, you mentioned that you choose these movies based on themes. Can you describe some of the past couple themes? Like, do you watch several movies in one night and then discuss them? Or is it kind of one movie?
Well, important to note that
walk me through that a bit more in depth.
Sure. These events are happening on a Thursday, and we have jobs.
Couldn't be me. By the way, guys, update on the job applications. It's not going well. Carry on.
So because we have jobs, we can't watch 3 movies on a Thursday night. We're not watching The Irishman or Lord of the Rings, Return of the King Extended Edition. They're more bite-sized and digestible. But recently, with springing...
Spring has sprung?
French New Wave has been of interest. And it has to be movies that we're not regularly watching. These are not Netflix originals.
French New Wave. Ah, yes. Okay.
Later this summer, I plan on hosting a Pedro Almodovar night, because, summer, humidity, gazpacho.
And I also know you guys watched Fast and Furious. Recently, yes? You guys watched a Fast and Furious?
Yes, we had a Fast and Furious themed party.
See, now that I can discuss. Now that is something Nick can get behind. Moving on, though. We don't need to talk about that. What we do need to talk about is, so when did you become like the social queen of DC? Like, your parties are exclusive, everyone wants to get in, but like, how are you booing from the curb of the club when you can't even get in? So describe me how you have curated this cultural moment in DC.
Sure. Well, I guess it all starts at the very beginning. When
Ripple effect.
I have always had an interest in event planning and party planning because I love to host.
When she was in high school, she hosted a Harry Potter themed party, and I wore a pillowcase and acted as Dobby for the night, serving them butterbeer. So yeah, she's not lying. She's always been one to party plan.
And you liked it.
I was involved. I was obsessed with my sister, so any way I can be involved is a treat.
You're just a people pleaser.
Her saying yes to this podcast blew my mind, by the way.
And so when I was in college, I had the opportunity to be part of our campus program board. And that's where I really had not just a amateur interest in event planning, but a professional one. So I was lucky to make a pseudo career out of production, event planning, and logistics since graduation, but it doesn't scratch that creative itch that having full creative strategic control of an event does. Thank you, corporate America. And so having parties at home where, importantly, I do not live in a studio apartment, but I am blessed.
She's not slumming it like the rest of y'all losers.
I'm blessed to live in a beautiful DC home with some roommates who have given me free range to put things on the calendar and plan around them. So once we had this space, we're like, we have the space, let's have some people over for dinner. Oh, we have the backyard, let's roast a lamb for Easter. Oh, well, we have all this space, let's have a 40-person Halloween rager. So because of the privilege of hosting space, a blank canvas. I'm an artist. You can't present the opportunity to me. And so now it's not just like fun for me because it's cheaper, frankly, to host your friends and to go over to a elaborate house party than it is to go on a bar crawl. But it's just fun to be sort of the social center of an occasional Saturday night. I am a Leo rising.
And, you mentioned something about the privilege of having the space to host. Would you also say it is both a privilege and a duty?
Well, yes. I don't know how clued in you are.
Pause. I need to make sure we're still recording on the camera. We're not. When did this happen? Have we ever been recording? Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode.
All right, we're back.
You were mentioning of the duality of the privilege of being able to host and the duty.
Yes, duty. Well, we have a social loneliness crisis in the country right now, created by multiple forces: the cost of living crisis, the phone. It's that phone.
It's damn phones.
It's that damn phone. And just a various things. So and also, what about beans rhetoric? Are you familiar?
Yes. But for those who aren't, please describe.
For those who aren't aware, what about beans is, years ago, a woman posted on TikTok, the best app for productive internet conversation, a bean recipe, or like a bean soup recipe. She's like, here's my favorite bean soup recipe. The comments are, of course, flooded with, what if I'm allergic to beans? Or is it possible to make this without beans? And it just became emblematic of this internet mind frame that has, I don't know, seeped into the day-to-day of everything has to be tailored to me because my algorithm is tailored to me. So when real life isn't tailored to me exclusively, I get uncomfortable and angry. I like beans.
I personally am a fan of beans. I actually hate beans. They make me gassy, and my microbiome is already messed up as is, that I don't need to be adding fuel to the fire. You know what I mean?
Anyway, so back to the question of, how do we deal with the fact that everyone is lonely, but no one wants to make plans to hang out? And the truth is that a life worth living, you have to build it yourself. You cannot complain that, oh, I don't have friends if all you do is sit in your room and scroll on your phone. You have to be out in the world. You have to be a person of the world, not a person of the algorithm. And when it comes to party planning specifically, it's like, oh, I don't have friends. Like, you have to be a community builder. You have to keep building a network. It's like you cannot hang out with the same 3 people all the time. You have to invite friends of friends and try to expand the network. And it's truly just, if you're going to complain about being lonely and not having anything to do, and yet you're not taking any steps to rectify that, I have a hard time feeling sorry for you. And I say this as a closeted introvert.
Damn. Yep. You said something and I was going to really do an epic bounce off that. Bounce on the shit. Damn. Bounce on the shit. No hands. Oh, you moved to DC, 5 years ago now? 4?
4, 3.5.
What, end of 2020, beginning 2021?
September 2021.
Wow. One might say that, that was your first time kind of moving, far from home. And every day I miss her so much. And I just want to know... And I just want to know, especially with your focus on, you mentioned you need to invite friends of friends. You need to be a person of the world to not be lonely. I'm wondering, how has that experiment worked out for you? Tell me more about how, your emphasis on creating social spaces and social events has kind of added to your life,
I've always been a person that prioritized platonic connection in her life. Friendships are a very powerful tool and an underrated relationship in modern American society. Also, everything that I say, parentheses, everything that I say is truly giving the energy right now of, oh, I sense a vibe, or I saw an anecdote on the internet. Is this a broader social problem? But the answer is yes. So I made the conscious choice to move to be close to a bunch of my friends. And then based off of whether they had their own friend groups there, and, slowly got to meet other people, and the network grows. I was lucky.
It all comes back to LinkedIn, you guys.
I was lucky to experience that, because a lot of people move to a new city with no friends, either because of a job, and then they are in the unfortunate position of having to have their friends only be their coworkers, which is a very dangerous and messy place to be. Or alternatively, you move to with a significant other and you rely on them for all of your social connections. So whereas that is all removed when you move because of friends, which is just a very, it's a safe place to be. So I don't know what the question was, but how
your emphasis on creating social spaces and events and that kind of thing has worked out for you in 5 years, having your first step out of college and out of institutions and whatnot, where it's very easy to make connections with people and stuff. So I was wondering how that has transpired for you, and maybe more specifically, what have you learned now reaching maybe almost year 5 in that?
Well, it's worked out great.
Yeah, she's Miss Popular over here.
Obviously. However, it's taught me a lot about how terribly some people were raised. I would like to share...
We're looking at you. I'm kidding.
I would like to share an anecdote from last year's Cinco de Greco fusion Greek Easter Cinco de Mayo party.
That is just one of the parties she threw in the last year. Keep that in mind.
Cinco de Greco was truly a gift from above, because we realized that Greek Orthodox Easter, which we had typically done something for every year due to one of our friends being Greek, was the stars aligned, because it was also Cinco de Mayo. That is one of, my personal favorite holidays. And the cultures blended really well together. The famous Latina belt, Mexico, Greece.
For those who, many of the two people that watch this will not be familiar with the Latina belt.
Oh my gosh, wait, this is Stream of Consciousness podcast.
That's the title.
Yeah.
I sit down for a Stream of Consciousness with Victoria Bakar. Latina belt.
I'm not explaining myself.
So the party, the Greco.
Okay, so
Cinco de Mayo.
Party planning has really taught me, and hosting has really taught me who has manners, who does not, who is an entitled guest versus who is a grateful guest, who do I want to come back / who is proverbially banned from my home. A Greek Orthodox.
Go ahead and list names.
I don't know their names because they're friends of friends. They weren't even primary attendees. They were guests of guests. We had this party. First of all, it was. I can't even begin to get into it, but let me try. There were 3 main incidents that stuck out to me on this night. The first is well, actually, really 2 that I'll share. There are 2 incidents.
And that's behind the paywall for that third one. So link down in our in the description for the Patreon where you can see that third anecdote.
At Cinco de Greco, there were 2 incidents. The first is a man who I had no idea who he was sitting outside, and he had a box of seltzers in front of him. My beloved housemate went up and was like, "Oh, can I grab one of those? Because, it's Cinco de Greco. He is risen. Christos Anestis. Everyone, you bring something." And note to self / note to everyone, if you are coming to someone's house, never show up empty-handed unless you've been explicitly told by the host not to bring anything. And even that is a trap. You should always bring something, especially if you've never been to the home before.
It's one thing if it's like your best friend's place and you're like, you know what? Some could make the stretch of be like, you know what? We're close enough to where I don't need to bring anything.
Yeah, and also if there's a difference between showing up to a party where there are multiple guests versus, oh, I'm just going up to hang with you before we go out. But this man took one look at my friend who asked for a seltzer. Mind you, she lives at the house and she's a co-host of this event. He was like, I'd rather you not. These were kind of expensive. And she laughs, obviously, because that's hilarious. What a comical thing to say. And she's like, wait, are you serious? So no one knows who that man was, but note to self, were they magical seltzers? Were they imported in a post-tariff world? No, they were regular seltzers that you could buy at the grocery store for $10. And why are you coming to a holiday fusion feast and you're not going to share? Then there was another woman who overstayed her welcome and just ended up taking a huge unopened cake. It was like, oh, can I have this since no one ate it? Did you bring it? No, it was just there. And another rule, if any leftover food is at a place,
that belongs to the host.
It automatically belongs to the host.
And then it is up to the host's discretion to do as they see fit.
Exactly. So that was a real watershed moment for me in realizing that, and it's what inspired me to impose RSVP limits on my parties, because it's one thing to have 25, 28 people in your home. It's a whole other thing to have 40, especially +1. So all +1s are now vetted by me.
So you have kind of become the Anna Wintour of DC in that the Met Gala is your house, and it's only with your discretion do they come.
Yeah, but I would never have a bob.
And have you found that your gatherings, having since, restrained them a bit, have they been more fruitful? Have they been more interesting, more fun? What has that kind of effect had?
I never want to tease a retirement that will never.
Breaking news! She's never hosting again.
But hosting is a hard work. And
It's the work of young people, and you're no longer young.
Oh my gosh. Hosting is hard work. It's
pushing 30, y'all.
When you do it, and it has to be done properly. You cannot just, everyone come to my place and we'll just throw a little house party. Like, a proper party has parameters, it has a theme, it has lighting, it has food, it has drink. And from the moment it has multiple cameras floating around to capture the evening, like, it's an experience. And creating experiences is difficult, and it's a fruitless job. It's a thankless job when you're the only one cleaning, prepping. I am spending a great deal of my personal finances because these events are also free for all. So maybe I don't know, maybe that'll change.
Yeah, so maybe you still have a majority of your parties be invite only, and again, booing from the curb, you can't even get in the club. And you have a couple parties, though, a year that are open, but there's, what's it called no, it's not called a fee. It's not called a ticket. It's like when you need to pay to get in. It's like cover. There's a cover.
I am a woman of the people. I'm a populist. I'm vindicated once more with how expensive it is to go out and party, that a house party is free and it's a different experience. So how am I reconciling both my personal costs of party planning while keeping it free for all? Because I do not want to be one of those cringe millennials who's like, oh, I have a hobby and a passion project. Let me see if I can monetize this. Because the second you introduce money into things, it becomes less fun.
It's also a little tacky to be like, oh, Venmo request, oh, you ate a fifth of the pizza, you need to Venmo me $2, is that something kind of similar with party hosting?
Definitely.
Or is that kind of a different line?
No, it's also, there's a difference between going out to dinner and having a fry off someone's plate and then getting a Venmo request of a quarter. It's like, well, you ate some of my fries, and I'm like, all right, cheapos. I can't stand cheap people. I can't stand ungenerous people. But for example, if you host a party and you buy a keg, it's not unreasonable to ask, we ask for donations to partially cover the cost of the keg.
What is socially generous? Okay, so for perspective, a couple weeks ago, Victoria sent me an outline for the podcast. So shout out for that commitment to the bit. I really appreciate that. But what does it mean to be socially generous?
I write about this extensively in my collab essay with my friend on Substack. The article is on flakers and freeloaders. Link below.
See, she's already getting you.
And, I don't know if you were privy to this on the internet, but every day there's always some sort of horrible conversation about whether it's rude to bail on friends when you're tired, whether weddings should have alcohol at them, whether you should be able to talk at the movie theater. We truly are in a social graces and, social aptitude and manners and etiquette desert. It's horrible out here, but social generosity extends to just, give in, get out type of thing where, oh, can I invite a friend to this party? I'm like, yeah, of course, the more the merrier. Whether that friend is a good guest remains to be seen, but everyone deserves a chance to be included. Everyone deserves a seat at the table, so long as they're bringing something to the table.
And then if you say no when I ask you for a cider, that is a quick way to be removed from the table.
And
annexed.
Social generosity is just everyone is trying their best. If your friend has a crazy job and is working crazy hours and is like every now and then is like, hey, or I'm feeling sick, or I don't think I'm going to make it out to this party. It's like, okay, well, there's always the next one. When you're as active a host as I am and a lot of other people are, it's like, it's no big deal if someone doesn't show up to a niche screening of a Wes Anderson movie, because I'm like, well, there's another niche screening a couple months from now.
Thank you for that definition.
It's hardly a definition, but it's just good vibes, be relaxed, and hope that you are respected for your time.
What does this say? Foucaultian nightmare of aesthetics, presentations, or manifestation romanticization technique.
What?
You wrote here, Foucaultian. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Since this is your
About
podcast.
time. I just got a fucking word in.
How you, of course, went to marketing school.
Advertising, but yes. There is a difference.
How do you feel about the concept of being the creative director of your own life? And how does sort of seeing things through a marketing lens, advertising lens, infiltrate into your daily life, if at all?
That's a stumper. Well, my initial instinct in answering that is I went to school for advertising. It's a creative thing. I wanted to be an art director, so more specifically visual design and that kind of thing. So having a creative industry like that is all about striking when the iron's hot. You know, I catch myself saying like, oh, I was going to do this and then life happened. You know, and then life happened. What does that even mean? Life is happening the same whether you're doing it or not. So I'm trying to incorporate this a little bit more, and I'm not doing a good job. You know, I am still an avid. I was going to record these podcasts weekly. I recorded the last one about 3 weeks ago. But I'm trying to force myself to do just that, strike when the iron's hot. So when I have the idea of like, you know, I want to make a podcast, or, you know, I want to make a poster as a part of this poster series, not only to get more creative reps in and, you know, to stay using that muscle, but also, you know, I relate in terms of not to the extent that you do of hosting and being the one to like, let's do this. Oh, let's not just go to Chick-fil-A. Let's like go have a picnic. Let's go do the photo shoot. Let's like go do something with our time. So both in terms of creative direction socially and just like personally in life and seeking fulfillment through creative production as I do, striking when the iron's hot. So like if I'm thinking of someone, texting them, being like, hey, I'm thinking of you. We should do something. Instead of being like, oh, I haven't talked to you in 4 months. Life, you know. Did that answer your question at all?
Yeah. It's sort of how when I get it's sort of how when I get the idea for a party, I will put it on the calendar immediately and then cut to my friends being like, why did I get 3 Google Calendar holds in one day for events all the way out in July? And this will be happening in February. But striking while the iron is hot and while the inspiration. So you have something to look forward to, because we are blessed with foresight and anticipation. Yeah. Moving on to my next, based off that, and I guess the idea of something that I see a lot in event design these days are moments that you can tell are clearly not for the in-person attendee experience, but to be consumed afterwards on social media for engagement purposes. And I'm curious with what your thoughts are on creating real life experiences and real life daily moments with always with an intended online audience in mind, as opposed to a real life audience, whether it's interpersonally or for your party guests or just groups of people.
Well, I hate to be that person, but I deleted Instagram. I deleted social media at the beginning of this year, and like the annoying people who come back on social media to tell you how amazing it was, I was like, oh, they're being so annoying. It's actually great. Like, I love being out of the loop and not feeling like, like the trends. Like, my friend Riley, I was on the phone with her today. She was like, oh, yeah, do you know that, like, when they make a TikTok where it's a clip from a show and then there's a boom sound and then there's another clip and it's like a trend. And I was like, no.
So editing?
Well, yeah, but apparently it's like a formula for like whatever. I didn't get it. But in terms of doing things with the intent of consumption online afterwards, well, again, I'm not online anymore. So I say as I'm recording a podcast that I will be posting on YouTube. But there are two kind of things that I've seen in the past like 2 years or a year or so that like have really struck me as scary, which is one time I was hanging out with my friends and we don't see each other too often in person, but we call all the time. And we were hanging out in person and a friend of mine goes, "Oh my God, this is like Skype in real life." And I was like, "Oh my God, we have lost the plot. This is horrible." That, and then like I will go through my camera roll of when I was in school and like I don't know, there were just like between classes or between meetings, me and a friend would have sushi on the quad or something and like just sit there or whatever. And then we were talking and there's like, "Oh my gosh, that felt like a movie." And a lot of this, like, this feels like this. We're comparing what real life is feeling like, what a good life moment is, to a movie, to a digital experience. And because we consume everything all the time digitally, I think it's important to just be like, no, this is just life, man. Like, you just got to keep living. LIVIN. Enjoy the sun, touch some grass. But, like, I think it's okay to have good life moments. Like, but like, I love the example of having a picnic with a friend or going on a hike or, whatever, having, like, a iconic... Even the word iconic in that context makes me vomit because it's like, oh my God, this is an iconic moment. But like,
that's also not what your iconic means.
I ran out of steam. But living life not to compare it to like online moments, movies. I don't know, it just struck me that sometimes it's like, oh my God, this is my life is a movie. It's like, no, your life is life, and they base the movies off of life. Yet we haven't lived, here we go. I start to get into guru preachy, but like, people don't live, those, fulfilling lives anymore. So all they know is like, oh my God, this is like a movie, because they have seen that more recently than in their own life. Did that go anywhere? Be honest.
Why, yes.
I'm not convinced, but. I'll cut it, I'll splice about 2 words together and that will be all that's coherent from that last section. But kind of moving forward, what parties do you have coming up?
I am the inventor of cocktail potluck, proverbially known as cockluck. And we will be having our 9th cockluck later next month. It will be, and we're really encouraging people to be in their amateur mixologist moment and put some creative thought into what gin, botanical, spritz, springy cocktail you would make. And it's just really fun for people to come together and not just engage in some debauchery, but also try and put some thought and intent behind said debauchery. So we'll have that. We have a Great Depression themed potluck later this summer to tap into the current cultural moment of everyone freaking out about the economy, and coming together around sort of moments that are relevant and top of mind, such as the cost of living, spring.
I love the idea of potlucks and like adapting them to like not just be like a dinner and meal thing, but like as more of a party thing, because then it requires buy-in from people. It's like you need to bring something and you need to have thought about it before coming, like kind of Is that intentional?
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on potlucks in general, which is why I rarely host a potluck, and I'll host a drinks potluck or something. But I definitely, mostly because I'm a control freak and I don't like the idea of someone bringing a dish that was not been vetted and doesn't match the curated.
I brought a marshmallow casserole.
Curated aesthetic of the event. Which is also how I feel about people wearing jeans to my party when I specifically said in the dress code that no jeans are allowed.
You know who you are. Thoughts on politics? I'm kidding. And with that, I think that wraps our stream of consciousness conversation with our very own Victoria Bacarvarella. Feel free to turn to camera and promote whatever you got coming out.
Follow me on Substack at VBexR. The blog is
I feel like Sean Evans.
Listen Up Cowards. And yeah, I just would say my call to action is for everyone to host a party, host a gathering. It doesn't have to be at your house if you don't have the space. It can be at a bar, it can be in a park. But really, it's imperative that people come together now more than ever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And music. And scene. How was that?
Very good. We'll have fun editing that.
Oh yeah, that's going to be a nightmare.